The story kicks off with a guy named John Bridger, a legendary safecracker who could pop open any vault like it's child's play. He's a pro, but beneath the crime, he's just a dad who loves his daughter more than anything. He once promised her he'd never go back to his old ways, but temptation hits one last time. One final score. A gold heist worth millions. The target? Ruthless Italian gangsters who stole the gold just a week earlier. And John knows exactly where they'll be: Venice. John assembles his elite crew of 6 for the job. There's Charlie, the mastermind who sees John as a father figure; Lyle, the genius hacker who can map out every inch of a building; Handsome Rob, a speed demon behind the wheel; Left Ear, an explosives expert who can blow up anything with precision; and Steve, the inside man who'll sneak in and make it all happen. Their target sits inside a building literally floating on the canals of Venice. Classic. The gold's locked in a safe on the first floor, right under the gangsters' noses. Steve slips into the apartment directly below it while the rest of the team quietly maneuvers their boat through an underwater tunnel beneath the building. The hacker scans the structure, marks the exact location of the vault, and feeds the coordinates to Steve. He plants charges on the ceiling, right below the safe. Simultaneously, the crew lines up explosives beneath the tunnel, ready to blast. With perfect timing, they detonate. The vault, heavy with gold, crashes through the floor and straight into their setup below. Before the gangsters even realize what's happening, John's crew sails off into the Venetian night with the loot. But that's just part 1 of the plan. The gangsters chase after 2 of them, unaware that Charlie has played them like a symphony. The safe they see on the boat? Empty. The real one sank underwater, right where John and the others are waiting. Working fast, John cracks open the submerged safe with minutes to spare before the police swarm in. Inside gleams a fortune in stolen gold. They load up the bags, slip away unseen, and by the time the cops arrive, there's nothing left but ripples on the water. The crew celebrates the flawless heist with laughter, cheers, and raised glasses, the thrill of victory sparkling brighter than the gold they just stole. They each start bragging about their plans for the payout: new lives, offshore accounts, the usual fantasies, until Steve stays quiet. When pressed, he smirks, "I'm thinking I'll just steal your plans." Turns out Charlie's brainchild is the real reason they pulled off the Venice job without a single gunshot, but celebration curdles fast. When the crew tries to drive away, another car blocks them on a bridge, and Steve pulls a gun, pins the driver, and his men swarm the car. They yank the safe out, shove John aside when he tries to stop them, and before anyone can react a struggle sends the car plunging into icy water. Steve rains bullets down while the others hold their breath in drowned metal, certain they'll suffocate. Yet miraculously, all of them survive the cold except John, who dies under the water. Charlie watches helpless, grief turning into a quiet, cold rage. A year goes by and the wound never heals. Charlie discovers Steve has resurfaced in Los Angeles and built an absurdly secure vault, tons of steel, a safe meant to hide a fortune. Only John's daughter, Stella, can crack a lock like that. She's picked up her father's craft, but she's not a thief, she works for the government. Charlie goes to her anyway, pleading for help. She refuses at first, raw from the memory of her father's murder. Charlie insists it's not about the gold. "John was like a father to me," he says, and that he wants to take from Steve what Steve stole, John's life. Stella calls him back. She'll join because she can't let her father's killer go unpunished. The old team reassembles, this time with Stella in John's place, and they head to LA to stake out Steve's mansion. Their hacker runs a sweep and freezes. The place uses a Carson security system, legendary in its invulnerability. In recent years no one has cracked it. Carson's contest prize and impenetrable reputation have always been the stuff of legend, and Charlie knows they're up against a fortress, so he designs a plan that's equal parts theater and engineering. First they cut Steve's cable and file a formal complaint with the provider, so a technician is dispatched. Stella volunteers to pose as that tech, slipping inside under a uniform and a clipboard while a tiny body camera streams every corridor and room back to the team. Once inside she moves like a ghost, checking the modem, pretending to reroute coax, but really photographing safe locations, air ducts, wiring runs, alarm panels and the routes a guard or housekeeper would take. She watches Steve's private life unfold, his showy cars in the garage, the custom audio rig in the living room, the designer watches in the glass case, and every little thing she records becomes a piece of Charlie's map. Outside, while the hacker runs deep recon on the Carson encryption and the house network, then pivots to the city. He probes traffic control feeds until he can flip a light from green to red at will and inject a millisecond delay into CCTV streams, giving them clean windows of movement. He also spoofs a maintenance notice on Steve's smart home app so certain cameras go into standby during their planned entry. Meanwhile Rob and Left Ear obsess over logistics. discovering the safe's distance from the main gate and the narrow service corridor that links it to a back alley, they engineer 3 compact steel carts slim enough to slip through the passage. They mount heavy iron plates to simulate a full load and retune the motors to handle repeated starts and grades. Rab, their ace driver, tracks down a grizzled tuner with a reputation for surgical modifications and brings him into the garage, where he moves with the confidence of someone who can read metal like scripture, promising to boost torque, reinforce suspension, and rework the transmission so the cars will launch and stop on a dime. While grease and gasoline fog the air and mechanics argue over clearances and torque curves, the hacker and their crew disappears into a back room full of monitors and soldering irons. Within hours he's mapped the city's traffic control grid, found a backdoor, and written a program that will let him flip any intersection between green and red with a keystroke. They need that control because the route from Steve's house to the train station is deceptively short but a choke point for rush hour traffic, buses, delivery trucks, and a constant flow of commuters, so timing the lights becomes as important as horsepower. The team runs coordinated rehearsals, Rab drives, the tuner tweaks a setting, the hacker simulates traffic changes on his screens, and Steve times each maneuver with a stopwatch, shaving precious seconds off the run. By the end of the night the cars hum differently, stiffer, lower, hungry, and the hacker's interface glows like a small command center. Together they've turned a risky plan into a precise, mechanized escape plan that depends on speed, silence, and absolute control of the city's arteries. Finally, the day of the big job arrives, the same day Stella is supposed to go on her date with Steve. The plan is simple. While Steve is out waiting for her, the team will slip into his house, grab the gold, and vanish before he even realizes what's happened. Everything is timed down to the minute. But as soon as Steve leaves and they pull up near his place, a problem hits them hard. His neighbors are throwing a massive party next door. Music is blaring, people are spilling into the street, and the air is filled with noise and flashing lights. Breaking into Steve's place now would mean blasting open the gate, which would instantly draw attention and destroy the entire plan. One mistake, and everything they've built collapses. Now they're stuck. The only way to keep the plan alive is for Stella to actually show up to that date, just as scheduled. If she doesn't, Steve will get suspicious, cancel any future meetings, and they'll never get another shot at the gold. Reluctantly, Stella goes to meet him, slipping into character like nothing's wrong. She smiles, laughs, and plays her part perfectly. Steve is charming, too charming, and for a moment, even she feels the tension between them. After spending some time together, Stella gently says she needs to head home. Steve looks at her, half smiling, and says, "We've had such a great evening together, don't you trust me?" Stella holds his gaze and replies calmly, "I trust the good in you, Steve, just not the animal inside every man." The words hit him like a punch. His smile fades, and for a brief, sharp second, something changes in his eyes. He finally understands, this isn't just some girl he's dating. This is John's daughter. Because John had always warned her, Stella lets her hand slip into Steve's and squeezes. He tightens his grip and studies her like a man who suddenly suspects a hidden current. "Tell me, who are you with?" he asks, voice low and dangerous. At that exact second Charlie and his crew, the men Steve had double-crossed, step out of the shadows, faces set, jaws clenched, and the air snaps taut with the threat of retribution. Steve goes white for a beat as the pieces click into place. These are the people who want his gold, the ones who've been whispering and planning behind his back. He leans forward, speaking with the cold precision of someone who knows how to cut a deal and ruin one. "You saw one guard at the gate, but there are 5 inside. The system you hacked? I can rewrite its whole logic. And anyway, the gold's gone, I sold most of the bricks. I've only got 2 left. Is that really what you came to fight me over?" Charlie's jaw hardens and he spits, "We came for everything," and Steve answers with a small, dangerous smile, "You already had your one chance. You blew it." That's the last word before Charlie lashes out, one brutal punch that lands square on Steve's cheek, sending him back onto the pavement, and without another word the crew melts away into the night, their silhouettes folding into the alleyways as cold and final as the punch they left behind. Everyone in the crew is crushed. Their entire plan has fallen apart, and the silence between them feels heavier than the gold they almost had. Then their hacker, still glued to his laptop, suddenly breaks the silence. "I just tapped into Steve's security feed," he says. One of his guards made a call. Steve's expecting a helicopter at midnight. At 11, a car will arrive at his house, and by 12:30, he'll be airborne with the gold, heading straight for Mexico. The news hits the room like a punch to the gut. The team exchanges looks, defeat, frustration, disbelief. They've lost their window. But Charlie just leans back, a faint smirk curling on his lips. "That's not bad news," he says. "That's good news. The fish is coming straight to us now." Meanwhile, across town, Steve is cleaning up loose ends in his own brutal way. The man he'd sold the gold to lies dead in his warehouse, shot point blank. Steve had discovered that the gold bricks bore a small engraving, a dancer, the same emblem from Venice, and he realized the buyer knew too much. Steve couldn't risk anyone tracing the gold back to the heist. So he silenced him. Permanently. But what Steve doesn't know is that the man he just killed wasn't alone in this world. His cousin, a dangerous, relentless man with a reputation for settling debts in blood, has already picked up the trail. Fueled by rage and revenge, he starts hunting for the person who murdered his cousin. His first stop? The very contact who mentioned those gold bars with the Venetian dancer carved into them, the same clue that will soon connect every player in this deadly game. The man Steve's victim had spoken to turns out to be a heavy-set guy, a local fixer and one of Charlie's longtime contacts. Charlie had originally asked him to dig around, to gather intel on the gold trade and who was buying from Steve. But when Steve killed his buyer, the buyer's cousin came looking for answers, and the fixer panicked. Under pressure, he spilled everything, told the cousin that it was Charlie who had asked for the inquiry in the first place. Now, the cousin believes Charlie is the one who murdered his kin, and he swears to hunt him down and make him pay. When the fixer finally meets Charlie again, sweating and trembling, he tells him the whole story, that someone dangerous is now after him because of a misunderstanding. Charlie listens carefully, then puts a hand on the man's shoulder and says in a calm, steady voice, "Then I'll need your help to fix this mess." Meanwhile, Steve is executing his own counterplan. Preparing to move the gold out of his mansion, he doesn't just call for one vehicle, he brings in 3 identical trucks, each armored and surrounded by armed security. It's a clever diversion. He wants anyone watching to be completely unsure which one carries the real load. To keep total control, Steve boards a helicopter, hovering high above the city, monitoring the entire operation like a chess player watching his pieces move into place. Down below, the 3 trucks roll out of his estate in formation, engines rumbling through the night. Charlie's crew watches from a distance, their nerves tight with tension. They know the gold is in one of them, but which? To narrow it down, they check the tire pressure readings transmitted through their hacked surveillance feed. The first truck shows a slightly higher pressure, heavy load. The second reads normal, and the third, oddly light. The realization clicks instantly, the first truck is carrying the gold. That truck, heavier than the rest, was the one. The gold was inside. Its license plate number was already burned into their minds. Charlie's crew knew exactly where they needed to take it, a precise spot in the city where every second of their plan would unfold perfectly. Since they controlled the entire traffic light system, they created a citywide jam, freezing intersections, trapping commuters, and locking down every alternate route, except for one clear path, the one that led straight to their ambush point. As the chaos unfolded above ground, Charlie and his team moved below, deep into the metro tunnels. They jammed the train signals, stopping all movement in and out, turning the underground passage into their private escape corridor. The plan was daring, impossible even, but perfectly synchronized. When the targeted truck finally reached the chosen stretch of road, everything happened in seconds. Sparks exploded under its tires, the asphalt cracked and collapsed, swallowing the entire vehicle into the earth. The truck dropped straight into the metro tunnel, landing right where Charlie, Stella, and the crew were waiting, flashlights cutting through the dust and smoke. Up in the helicopter, Steve watched in disbelief as his truck, his gold, vanished off the radar. He scanned the streets below, shouting orders, but it was too late. His fortress of steel and security had just been outsmarted. Down below, Stella climbed into the back of the fallen truck and found the safe, heavy, and unmarked. She ran her hand across it and frowned. "He changed the safe," she said quietly. The one she had practiced on for weeks wasn't this one. It looked similar, but this version was tougher, reinforced with new locks and a thicker alloy shell. Steve had anticipated the possibility of betrayal, but what he didn't anticipate was just how far Stella and Charlie were willing to go to break through it. Stella examines the safe closely and explains, "There's a glass pressure sheet inside. If it cracks, the entire locking system will jam permanently. No one will ever open it again." The tension in the tunnel thickens, one wrong move, and the gold is gone forever. But Stella stays calm, her hands moving with the precision of a surgeon. After a few tense seconds, there's a soft click, the lock disengages. She exhales sharply and smiles. The safe is open. Inside, the gold gleams under the tunnel lights, bars stacked tight, reflecting the dim glow like liquid fire. The crew wastes no time. They quickly load the gold into their 3 modified trucks and race out through the underground route. Above ground, chaos still reigns, traffic frozen at every intersection thanks to their hackers' perfect orchestration. That's why neither the police nor Steve's men have been able to reach the scene yet. By the time Charlie's team emerges from the tunnel, they've already switched routes twice. But then, high above, Steve's helicopter spots them. The chase begins. The roar of rotor blades fills the air as he follows the convoys, tracking every turn they make. But the crew is ready for this too. They split up, weaving through side streets, tunnels, and overpasses, confusing the signal. In one final move, they drive the trucks straight into a freight yard and load them into a cargo train's luggage compartments just moments before it departs. When Steve's helicopter finally lands near the train station, the last car door is already sealed shut. He rushes toward it, desperate, and sees a man locking the hatch. Steve throws him an offer. "I'll pay you $50,000, just open it." The man turns slowly, and Steve freezes. It's the same mechanic who modified Charlie's trucks. With a small grin, the man flips the latch, and standing just inside the cargo bay is Charlie himself, waiting in the dim light. Charlie looks at him calmly and says, "You planned it well, Steve. Really well." Charlie steps closer, his voice calm but cutting like glass. 3 trucks instead of 1. A new safe. A helicopter watching us from above. You really thought of everything, Steve. But guess what? All that gold, it's mine now. Steve's face twists with fury. He raises his gun and points it straight at Charlie. "You think this is over? I've got the gun. Hand over my gold." Before anyone can move, footsteps echo from behind. A new voice cuts through the tension. "Drop it." Steve turns, and his blood runs cold. It's the cousin of the man he murdered, standing there with his crew, every one of them armed and aiming at him. Steve's gun is ripped from his hand, and now he's the one staring down the barrel. "Who the hell are you?" he demands. The man steps forward, eyes burning. "I'm the brother of the man you killed." Steve smirks bitterly. "He was already dead before I got there. But listen, there's gold here. A lot of it. You and I can make a deal." The man tilts his head. "A deal?" His voice turns cold. "I already made one." Charlie steps in and tosses him a small velvet pouch, heavy with gold bars. "That's for your trouble," he says. The man nods, tucks it away, and lowers his weapon slightly. At that moment, Charlie's crew emerges from the shadows, Stella among them. She walks straight up to Steve, her face unreadable. For a second, he almost smiles, as if she might forgive him. But instead, she clenches her fist and lands a hard punch right across his jaw, sending him crashing to the floor. "That was for my father," she says through gritted teeth, her eyes cold and steady. Moscow, the cousin of the man Steve killed, hauls him to a dark corner of the rail yard and leans in close, voice low and deadly calm. "I'm not going to kill you. I'll let you live in a kind of slow hell." He doesn't shoot, he promises a life of debt, of watching everything he loves rot away while he remembers the man he took. The threat hangs in the air like smoke, ugly and patient. Back on the train, the crew unspools into celebration, corks pop, cigarette smoke curls in the dim car, and for the first time in months they allow themselves to imagine a future that isn't measured in seconds and exit routes. Rab talks quietly about a garage where he can disappear and teach kids to drive. The hacker smiles at the idea of a legit tech contract that pays salaries instead of adrenaline. Stella thinks about a small house with a rooftop garden where sunlight, not sirens, wakes her in the morning. Charlie watches them, distant for a moment, then lets himself grin. This haul will buy them new names, new cities, and the small ordinary things thieves rarely dream of. As the train eats miles, the memory of John's advice threads through Charlie's head. There are 2 kinds of thieves, those who steal to survive, and those who steal for the rush of stealing itself. Don't become the second kind. If life gives you a chance, build a family, settle down with someone who keeps you human. The crew raises their glasses to that possibility, knowing some debts are paid in gold and some in the quiet currency of a settled life. For Charlie, John had never been just a mentor, he was the only father figure he ever knew. Every lesson John taught him, every word of advice, had carved itself deep into Charlie's life. As the camera pulls back, Venice stretches out around them, golden light rippling over the canals, laughter fading into the hum of the city. The 2 of them disappear into the crowd, hand in hand, their reflections shimmering on the water. And that's where it ends, not with a chase, not with a gunshot, but with peace. The story of thieves closes not in crime, but in love and quiet redemption. Our story ends here.